Hey gang, I'm going to try and squeeze this in here. And yes, I know I have the video camera oriented the wrong way because I'm holding my phone. And I want to hold my phone vertically, not horizontally. So, welcome back to the big board. Going to have a quick chat about P Ridge or Thunder in the Ozarks. I got four-ish turns done and sort of called it bygones. It's a little bit of from my gameplay anyway, a little bit of a walkover. The Confederates overwhelmed the Union pretty quickly. That the result is not necessarily a function of what I do or don't like about the game. It's just kind of how things played out. But what it made me realize was that I wasn't taking advantage of some of the features of the game system. I realized that perhaps I wasn't fully appreciating what's going on in the game system. Now, given that I've played it once before, played Kernstown, and had a kind of, I would call it a guided play, was taught how to play it, and I played the Devils to Pay, right? And so then this is my third play. And in fact, I got the same result out of Battle Hymn as well. It was just a walkover for the Confederates, and had me thinking about why and what transpired and whether that's good or bad or what the case may be. But what I thought I'd try and do is use my after action format guide, the sort of 10 key points that I drill in on, and just talk about those. Uh, I'm not going to put up images and stuff of the game. I'll post some images up. I took quite a few pictures, but I didn't record any video of gameplay or anything like that. I've got three games set up, and so bouncing from game to game and trying to talk through the rules is a challenge for me. I must be getting old. So, anyway, so first thing is, I guess you're set at that divisional commander or corps commander level, so the role that you're filling, and you're then tasked with managing all the different formations through a chip pool mechanic to let you bring the brigades into the action. And one of the things with the very attractive map, one of the things there is that that's very different from, say, Napoleonics, is that a lot of these battles in the American Civil War seem to have occurred on very congested or rough terrain, right? So light woods, heavy woods, hills, mountains, stuff like that, right? And this is no exception to that. The two main axes of advance are on roads, and so there are stacking limits on roads, which sort of confound the ability to get a weight of force up against a set of units. Some units can go into the heavy woods, some units can't. It's very slow going, so I can see why the game is actually 10 or 12 or 15 turns long, I think it is. But there was sort of a race to contact with some of the formations, and then things kind of petered out as we had to shuffle units around to get them up the roads. But that role that you fill, you're pulling chits, you're getting a divisional commander, and then you're rolling against his activation level to see whether he gets a full or a limited activation. And then you will then pick a brigade within his set of units to activate. And one of the key things that I kept, I think, kept neglecting to the detriment of the gameplay was that there's maneuver, attack, rally, reform, and defend as the four formation sort of types that you can take on, right? And I really wasn't taking advantage of that. I was pretty much assuming that everyone was either attacking using like 6 movement points or maneuvering using 9 movement points. And I really didn't take advantage of the defend capabilities, which would allow you to more aggressively recover shaken and disrupted combat results. So what that kind of leads me to is that when you're making in that decision space, in the sort of second element of the AAR guide, in that aspect, you're really making decisions at sort of a formation level first. What are we doing in this particular set of hours? And obviously this is all brigade scale, right? So it's 200 or 250 yards a hex, and I think it's a couple of hours a turn or something like that. I'd have to check the map, but Anyway, what am I going to be doing for this period of time during the turn, and what activities will I be executing? I wasn't taking advantage of that capability as much as I perhaps could have. Right? You have full knowledge of what's going on, other than you don't know what the next chit is coming out. So there's no hidden information. So it's great for solitaire play, and the objectives. I had a buddy of mine mention that he thought that some of the objectives in some of the games in this series are sort of biased in his view, and I don't know about that necessarily. This has a per turn accumulation of VPs that are geographically based, and you got to kind of get after it as the Confederates to start accumulating points, because as each turn passes by, you're missing out opportunities to accrue points, and you've got to win by a certain margin. But by the same token, the Union has a really hard time accumulating any points, because their objectives are way behind enemy lines and very difficult to really keep after the first turn. I can't see how you would do that unless you could overcome the Confederates and then press through and capture them and hold them for the last 4 or 5 turns. So interesting. In terms of objectives there. Order battle, I think, everybody knows. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of disagreement over what units had which strength and what level of quality they were at any given point in across the war. So I don't know that the OB is 100% accurate, but given that there's a multiplicity of combat values for the different formations from each state, I'm assuming that someone's done a little bit of homework on assessing that they're the right values, or relatively the right value, based on the number of men that were actively engaged at that given time for that battle, right? Okay. Conflict resolution goes through a pretty nifty 2d6 die roll exercise where fire and close combat are resolved on the same table. And then there's a series of, there's 3 columns within each combat factor column. And so if you've got 6 combat factors attacking or 12 combat factors attacking, you'll look at the 6 factor column, and you'll look at the die roll, and then you'll go, okay, I rolled a 34, and in that there'll be a either no result or a green, yellow, or red result. So okay, not so good, and severe result. And then that will then force you to make a cohesion check against your morale or effectiveness rating. And then you're going to go over to the sort of combat results table, of which there are 2, one for fire and one for close combat. And then you're going to look at the first number on the die that you rolled. So I said 34, so you'll look at the 3, and then you'll look at the 4, and that's going to give you two other results, which may be step losses or flipping the unit, into its worn side, and then you're going to get shaken or disrupted, and you may get a retreat, and you may take another morale hit, and stuff like that. And then you're going to go into into various attrition or broken boxes after you're deemed to be non-combat worthy, and then you've got to go through the recovery or rally exercise to come back onto the board or come back into a non-shattered or non-broken, shaken state, right? So pretty interesting, and it gives a pretty broad spectrum of results, and allows you to have a wide variety of DRMs for flanking and infantry versus cavalry, and artillery versus infantry, and those types of nominal typical things you would expect. But then also has tactical chits that you can play that might give you a bonus for being a Confederate using the rebel yell or something like that, right? So there's a handful of those that you've got to choose to play at the right time. Some have to be played before you roll the dice, some can be, and all that sort of fun stuff. So all pretty straightforward, but interesting. See a combat resolution system that I haven't really seen done exactly like that before. All right, so conflict resolution, logistics, really no logistics in the game whatsoever. So it's a battle-based system, so everyone's got enough ammo, although there is low ammo that can be inflicted upon the Union. But it's not really logistics from that perspective. It's just reducing your combat effectiveness. And then I think I really didn't spend a lot of time reading up on peerage, and I think that's one of the things I'm missing with these games is that I'm missing the context. And so shame on me, right? I need to do a little bit more research and reading on the actual battle before I go jump in and play it. And I think I'd get a lot more out of the gameplay than I would perhaps if you're just sitting down and playing the game. So my experience with playing Battle Hymn from Compass Games and my experience from playing this felt basically the same. Although I will say that I much prefer the combat system because in Thunder and the Ozarks because it's more detailed, and felt like I had some more choices that I could make. There's defensive fire and all that sort of stuff in here as well. So don't panic in terms of it's just a die roll. There are some in closing to combat, and then you've got to go through all the different little steps in the sequence of play. So plays relatively quickly. There's a lot of chip pulling because you're pulling the same commander out and then rolling to see if he's going to get a full activation, and then working out which brigade he's going to activate. He might have 4 brigades, and so if we have 2 division or 3 division leaders for one side and 2 or 3 for another, plus the corps commander. There's 6 or 7 chits that in there, of which 2 or 3 of them per side can be pulled multiple times, whereas the corps commander is only pulled once. And you can either choose to use him then or hold him till later to have that, because he can activate anybody, right? So anyway, so it plays relatively quickly. It's a pretty streamlined set of rules. Most of the new modules now have a set of series rules and then a set of module rules, which I really like. Much better than kind of jamming it all together, which they had done in the past. I love the components. The counters are 5/8. That's larger hexes. A pretty rich set of rich pastel colors, or vibrant, I think would be the right word. Some folks like or don't like the maps. I think they're Barber maps. So Rick Barber maps, right? So I like them. I think they're pretty cool to look at, and the counters look great on them. The counters are nice and thick. So altogether, great production values for this thing, and all the others that I have here, because I went through and bought them all, most of the games on the Revolution sale, which I think finishes Monday or Sunday night. So if you want to get these guys a little bit cheaper, now's the time to do it. But anyway, I just want to let you know that I'm planning on probably playing First Manassas or First Bull Run in the next week or so. So we'll get another run at the system, and it'll be a little bit more familiar, and we'll see how that influences my opinion of the gameplay. And hopefully I'll be a little more focused, and I'll be able to take some time to do some video on the gameplay and share a little bit more detail, let you see the game actually being played out as we go. All right, all the best. Later.